Hi everyone, my name is Maeve Conlon. I'm an adolescent education major with a concentration in history from St. Francis College, located in Brooklyn Heights, and today I'm talking about my project, Young Muslims in Brooklyn. So, to introduce this project, I was inspired by the Muslims in Brooklyn exhibit at the Brooklyn Historical Society. Due to the pandemic, it is currently closed right now, but once things get back to normal, I highly suggest visiting it. The project goes into details about the lives of various Muslims without the borough of Brooklyn. I was also inspired to do this project by the Race and Place in Brooklyn honors course taught at St. Francis College by Dr. Sarah Razudek. So, to kind of start us off, I have a brief history of Muslims in Brooklyn. A very interesting point, as in 1639, Anthony Jansen Van Sale, or Anthony the Turk, purchased 200 acres of land in Coney Island after being exiled from New Amsterdam. Now, this is the first piece of land purchased in Brooklyn by a Muslim person. It is very interesting and powerful to hear this information because from the very beginning of the history of the borough of Brooklyn, when Europeans and outsiders were coming into the area, we have a Muslim person living and practicing in the borough. Another very interesting point is that one of the oldest mosques in the United States is actually located in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. So 104 Power Street in Williamsburg is the site of said mosque. The property was bought and converted into a mosque by Lithuanian Tatars in 1931. The people were able to purchase this building as a community effort to have a place to worship, and I believe that it is still a working mosque to this very day. So it was very nice for this local community to kind of come together and be able to practice in a specific place. Now, when talking about Muslims, especially in the borough of Brooklyn, one must look at Malcolm X. So Malcolm X was a key figure during the 1960s, 1970s in Brooklyn, as he was a leader in the Nation of Islam. He led the Nation of Islam chapter in Brooklyn and helped create various Muslim-owned businesses such as the Shabazz supermarket chain. Now, Shabazz supermarkets did not sell tobacco, alcohol, or pork and provided halal products. During this time in this specific area of Brooklyn, I have a map provided, but you can see Fort Greene, Bedford-Stuyvesant area, the Bushwick area. We have Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, and then Prospect Lefferts Gardens. But mainly it is in the Fort Greene, Crown Heights, Bedford-Stuyvesant area. So the Muslims who were living in this area were predominantly African American, and they faced a lot of prejudices and racism in their communities. A lot of supermarkets and stores would not make accommodations for their dietary needs, as well as it was difficult to go shopping and have a bunch of haram stuff in front of you. So the Shabazz supermarket chain was not only a great business venture for many Muslims living in the area, but it also brought them a place of community, a place where they could comfortably shop with their families and not be worried about what was in the stores. Malcolm X was a great leader for the people during this time, as the green squares indicate various Shabazz enterprises, from supermarkets to barber shops to a radio store. They were able to kind of create their own community and businesses. This not only helped promote themselves financially, but also again strengthened their community. As you can see, the red stars also indicate various mosque locations that were able, or mosque events or meeting places that were held. One spot in particular is actually in a Presbyterian church. So the church was very kind to open up their basement to allow mosque meetings, which I don't really think it can get more American than having Muslim services in a Presbyterian church. But again, Brooklyn is a very interfaith and welcoming borough. Now, the main part of my project that I had focused on was young Muslims in Brooklyn. So, the Brooklyn Historical Society does a wonderful job at highlighting the lives of adults, but what about the youth? What about people who are college age? What is their story like? So, I decided to investigate this by interviewing some young Muslims in Brooklyn. When interviewing them, I focused on questions such as what their school experiences were like. I asked questions about, what their daily lives were like, as well as because we are currently still in the COVID-19 pandemic. When I was conducting this project, we were entering the month of Ramadan, which is the holiest month in the religion of Islam, marked with a lot of outdoor gatherings, community gatherings, prayer at the mosque. So I really wanted to see how the pandemic was affecting their most sacred holiday. So the first person I talked to was F. Ilali. He is age 21 years old. And in talking with him, sadly, he did share a story about how when he was out with his family in local stores doing errands, some of the locals would look down upon him and his family because they were speaking Arabic. While he did say that this is not a fun experience and it was very hurtful and sad, he did have a very strong community in his school, as there is a larger Muslim population amongst his peer level, especially in the neighborhood of Bay Ridge in Brooklyn. His daily life was mainly unaffected by his religion, but he's still somebody who goes home and celebrates the religious events with his family. In talking about the month of Ramadan, they said that his family stays home mainly and celebrates just by themselves. Another person that I talked to was M. Hlamu she's age 22, and in talking with her, she shared how her family was really embraced in their neighborhood of Fort Greene, Brooklyn. Despite a lot of her neighbors were not from the similar Syrian background that she is. A lovely story that she shared with me is that how in her family's laundromat, when her mom is working, she'll play the Quran over the speakers. And multiple customers have come up and asked, what song is this? What artist is this? And her mom explained that it is actually the Quran and it is actually prayers. The customers asked that because they just felt so relaxed and they just thought it was such a beautiful sound and a beautiful space to be in. So I think that that is something really important to highlight, is that once somebody is able to actually experience or hear or even just see someone praying or listening to their prayers, it can be a very beautiful experience, even if you don't understand the language that it is in. Unfortunately for Maxine, for M. Lamarck's family, she is very active in her community of going out, so they would go to weekly Friday prayers. She was joking, saying that she missed the hour of quiet when her brothers would go before her, because they were all stuck at home. She also mentioned there were services at NYU that her friends would attend, as well as a giant local gatherings when they would break their fasts during Ramadan, and unfortunately those events were not able to occur. So basically, she said that they were still able to celebrate and pray at home in a smaller sense. Doing these interviews really helped open my eyes to the experiences of people in my peer group who are different from me. And sadly, there are some difficult topics that were discussed. There were some instances of xenophobia and racism, and at the end of the day, it's just very upsetting to hear. Now, at the bottom here, I decided to include some demographic information about the Kings County, so that would be the borough of Brooklyn. And it's very interesting to see that almost 44% of people speak another language at home besides English. There is the information there of Indo-European, Asian or Islander or the other. But looking at this data, I was very interested to see that there was no exact marker for Middle Eastern or a language such as Arabic or Urdu. So it was very interesting for me to see that and look at this information because with such a large population that I know of in my hometown neighborhood of Bay Ridge, there's no check mark. In talking with Ilali as well, he would say that on forms he would either fill out the other part because there was no Middle Eastern section. So he was not European, he's of Lebanese descent, so he was not European, he was not North African, he just had to fill in other. So I think that while it is important to understand that Brooklyn is a borough made up of different languages, different cultures, even places of birth, we still can do a little bit better in making our demographic information more relatable to our populations. As I'm wrapping up, in conclusion, looking at the theme of our conference this year, they're trying to find answers to the unanswerable questions. One step that I think that we can in the unanswerable questions of our life, especially revolving into race and place and ethnicities and religions, is just by tolerance. Having tolerance for every person that we come by, being tolerant of those who are from different countries and different cultures. When we are inclusive to our neighbors and our community members, and we actually get to know them, we can help stop racist and xenophobic acts or thoughts from occurring. Sadly, especially after events such as 9/11 in New York City, there were a lot of attacks against Muslim individuals and people who were of the Muslim religious tradition or Islamic religious tradition. And it was such an upsetting thing because there were children who were yelled at. There were parents, there were people who were beaten. And it's such a devastating thing because they had no part in that attack. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen a rise in violence against Asian Americans. They have nothing to do with this coronavirus, yet they are bearing the brunt of it. And I believe that if we, especially looking at this project, if we are tolerant, inclusive, and accepting of our neighbors, even if we think of them on a global scale, which I think this pandemic has really helped us to understand that every human being is in this together. If we are tolerant and see every person we encounter as a neighbor, I feel like we can end these instances of hate, of racism, of xenophobia. Also, in conclusion, it is important to note that there has been a Muslim presence in Brooklyn since the 1600s. And I'm speaking to all of my fellow Brooklynites here. We have to embrace our neighbors. They've greatly helped better the borough of Brooklyn, and it is our duty to look out for our fellow Brooklynites. And again, it is our duty as citizens of the world to be accepting of our global neighbors. The main goal of this project was to highlight the voices of those who are silenced by society, who are forgotten, who are not really acknowledged. I hope that this project inspires you to open dialogue with those who are different from you. Thank you.